I'm Haley B. Miller, and this is Ohio Politics Explained, a podcast where you give us 15 minutes and we give you all the news you need to sound smart and impress your friends. Welcome to a special episode of Ohio Politics Explained. Today, we're digging into an all too familiar problem for families: childcare. It costs more than $25,000 to send an infant and a 4-year-old to a childcare center in Ohio. Workers earn just $13.57 an hour. And Ohio is one of only 6 states that doesn't spend more than what's required on childcare. The result? Parents are struggling to find affordable providers and making difficult decisions about whether to work or stay at home. For one mom, treating her cancer was the easier process.
I always thought that finding daycare for Jack was worse than going through my therapies with my cancer, because at least with my cancer, I knew the steps that I had to take, when they're going to happen, and the results for the most part.
Jesse Balmer did an excellent story examining this issue and is with me today to break it all down. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So as you noted in the story, this is not a new problem, but Ohio also can't seem to find a solution. What have lawmakers done, if anything, and how does it compare to other states?
Yeah, so like we said, childcare is expensive for families, and it's not like the people who are on the front lines of this are getting rich. So there is just like a question about how is this money being spent and like where is it going to? And in some regards, raising children and caring for children is just really expensive, in part because of the ratios. Like you can't just stick one adult in with 25 infants and think that that's going to be a safe situation. So that's kind of the problem that we're facing. And Ohio has tried to address it in a few different ways. Some of that has been Ohio Governor Mike DeWine, who has really put a focus on children and children's issues, has tried to increase the access to publicly funded childcare assistance, which either makes it free or discounted. And that has had some limited success. They've been able to increase the percentage, but Ohio is still one of the lowest in the nation as far as that. We've put some one-time money towards childcare vouchers, which would allow some families to get assistance up to 200%. And then in the state budget, they put $10 million towards a kind of pilot program called Childcare Cred, which would basically have the state chip in 20% of the childcare cost and then split the remaining 40% for the families, 40% for the businesses. This is a 1-year program, so there's like a short on-ramp to get this going, but it's modeled off of what Michigan has done, which is a true try-share program, like a third, which has seen some success. You've seen Kentucky has an innovative program where they pay for the childcare for childcare providers, so that helps both with the expense of doing that job, which is so important, but also kind of retains and attracts people to the field, which is not extremely well paid. So you're seeing different places try to address this in different ways.
You mentioned some of the money that's gone into it so far, but isn't Ohio also about to lose some childcare funding that I think came from federal legislation?
Yeah, so Groundwork Ohio, which is a group that really advocates for children's issues in the state, projects that there's going to be about a $600 million shortfall in the next budget for childcare expenses. And that's partially because we've been funding like the voucher program and some other things with federal money. There was a lot of federal assistance for everything right after the COVID-19 pandemic, including childcare, to make sure that that was still an option for Ohio families. And so I think state lawmakers are aware that this is coming, and talking with the state, they know it's coming. So they're hoping that they can have productive conversations to make sure that money is there in the next budget. But if you recall the previous budget, there was a lot of talk about cutting the income tax. This is a tight budget. Like, we're going to prioritize like our top issues. And childcare solutions are expensive. Like, they're expensive for the state to invest in. They're expensive for businesses to invest in. But there's also a cost of not investing in these things for Ohio's families, for children getting a good start, because those first 5 years are so critical to their development. And so, it's one of those things, are you going to pay now or are you going to pay later?
Yeah. You mentioned DeWine and, really the mission that he has held throughout his time as governor, which is to put kids kind of at the front of the conversation. What's been the dynamic between him and the legislature on this? In the budget, for example, he got some of what he wanted, but a lot of what he didn't.
Yeah, I think one good example of this is the child tax credit that he proposed. It would have offered $1,000 per child up to age 7, would have benefited about 450,000 families in Ohio, including those too poor to owe taxes. So it was a refundable tax credit. This is something that other states, honestly, predominantly Democratic states, have proposed, and the federal government is also taking a look at it as everyone from the president to the vice president is talking about how it's important to have more children and support families. But DeWine wanted to pay for this benefit with an increased tax on cigarettes and tobacco products. And that was almost immediately a non-starter for Republican lawmakers looking to cut taxes instead. And so I think for advocates who think this is a good idea, there was some frustration that why not find another place to find this money, or, why not be innovative about it as opposed to just say, nope, no tax increase.
Yeah, and I suppose the money's got to come from somewhere. But to your point, that was a, controversial means of funding the tax credit.
Yeah, I think Mike DeWine has been trying to increase the cigarette tax for a variety of different reasons. So, I'm not surprised that he made another go of it in his final budget.
Yeah, that's fair. Your story looked a lot at the role of employers in this conversation. The Ohio Chamber of Commerce has made childcare a big issue. What is happening in the private sector in Ohio, and is it enough to make up for the lack of state action?
Yeah, I think if you're looking for silver linings or reasons to be optimistic in the childcare policy sector, just the engagement of the business community on this issue is one place that you can look. The Ohio Chamber of Commerce has really made this a key campaign issue, not campaign, but issue for them and their members. They're holding events. They partnered with the National Chamber to look at just the economic cost of poor access to childcare in Ohio, and it was over $1 billion, and people just not being able to get back to work or work consistently. But I do think ideas like this kind of TriShare childcare cred program are a place for businesses to kind of put their money where their mouth is and get involved and find innovative ways to go about that. I think childcare is not a benefit on par with like a 401k or vacation time or, health insurance that your business is providing on a regular basis. But there are different businesses who are looking at innovative ways to attract employees and, include that as part of their benefit package. That's not widespread right now.
What about local communities? Are they trying to fill the gap at all?
Yeah, I think that's another place where you can see some optimism. And the city of Ashland and a bunch of different people came together to raise $4.5 million from 300 people to create a childcare center in their industrial park. They realized as a community that this was a problem, that they didn't have the way to attract the business for each individual's business because it was kind of a lot of smaller companies or so forth. And so they made this a focus. So that was one way they're looking at it. Different child care career centers are creating programs where you can learn to be a child care worker and kind of find some part-time or full-time work in that regard. And I talked to a couple women who went through those programs and found them very helpful and very fulfilling to, to get into those careers. So there are ways that locals are looking at trying to resolve this issue. But again, the folks from Groundworks Ohio are saying these are all great, but what if that was partnered with a really holistic statewide investment? You know, look how far we could maybe go.
Well, this is certainly a major issue that is not going away anytime soon. To learn more about what Ohio is and is not doing to make childcare more affordable, you can read Jesse's story on our websites.